Are we ready? Dave, you're up.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Team Powerhouse show. We are a little late tonight. It is Tuesday night. We are July 23rd. In the show, we have a very special guest over here, Miss Jennifer Crowley from Anywhere Insurance. A very exciting show for you if you don't have car insurance, if you do have car insurance, and why it's important and why you need it, especially if you're somebody who's maybe going from a rent to a purchase. It's all about you. Eric Vasquez on your far right, David Linnell here. It's a Team Powerhouse show, and thank you so much for joining. We apologize again for being a little late tonight, and happy to be back live with you in the studio. Jennifer Crowley, Anywhere Insurance. You've been doing this for a couple of minutes.
This month is 10 years with the agency.
10 years.
Yeah, a whole decade here. Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That means you have what they call experience.
Yeah.
Because experience matters. It does. It really makes a difference, as you know, because there are things you know and think about that other insurance people may not think about because of their experience and what they've seen in the past happen.
Right, right.
And those pieces of the puzzle play a big role in your lives when it comes to what kind of insurance you need.
Right.
We have a bunch of questions here for you
Okay.
that I wanted to ask. Eric's got some questions he'll fire off over there as well, I'm sure. So, like, when is a good time to get insurance? Like, you know, I shouldn't say when is a good time. You're a buyer, you're relocating, you're a renter, you're now gonna buy a house. You probably wanna look into your insurance policy. Maybe you're getting a home for the first time, maybe you're buying your first car, you just owned your first car.
Well, and because you are in real estate, right? So you're dealing with a lot of people that are moving and buying the home, buying the condo, and auto insurance is the last thing on their minds.
Right.
So every time I'm working with somebody to quote the insurance that they have to get for closing, you have to get the home insurance, you have to get the condo insurance, I'm always asking, let's look at the auto insurance.
Right.
And sometimes they're like, I don't need that now, let's just get through closing. But it's
Right.
really important, with the move, you have to update things. So it's the perfect time to reevaluate everything.
Not only are you reevaluating, you're also getting an idea of how your insurance may have been affected from your history.
Yes, yeah.
Or, like you just mentioned, whether it's a condo or a house. First of all, does it make a difference if it's a condo or a house in having a car?
Being a homeowner versus being a renter could usually trigger a discount on the auto insurance.
Okay.
So not necessarily the difference between what
Condo
you're
and
owning,
house does make-
yeah.
Condo or a house, if you own it, does it make a difference?
Yeah, like being a homeowner versus being a renter
Okay.
would be like more of a discount trigger.
But if you own a condo or a home, it's the same. It doesn't make a difference if you own a condo or a home,
Yeah,
does
it
it?
could be. So,
Yeah?
and every company is different. They're all gonna have their nuances and
Okay.
how they ask the questions and how they rate you, right? So when you shop for insurance, you check multiple companies and you get all different rates. So you're the same person,
Well,
but,
actually, you're checking multiple companies.
right.
Yeah, because
Right.
we wouldn't be checking multiple companies. We're calling you to do
You're
those
calling
multiple-
me to do the dirty
She
work,
is
yes.
like the, like, what's that thing on the Google for airlines? You're like Priceline. You know, I call it like the Priceline of insurance. You call up Jennifer and she's shopping all the companies
Well,
to
and
see
that's
what's the
that's
best
what's
rate for you.
frustrating, because when you try and do it on your own, you're getting all these different numbers thrown at you, and you don't understand where the numbers are coming from or why they're different.
Right.
And that's when you can use an independent agent like myself. We know how to ask the questions correctly to rate it correctly. First and foremost, we want to make sure you're being charged the rate you should be based on what you're doing with
Yeah.
the vehicle at the house and all things like that. And then we can compare that with different companies. So, you know, a Progressive or a Travelers or a Geico, you might be getting quotes from somewhere else and thinking my rate's high. Well, let's see, what are they giving you versus what am I giving you?
When you say giving, you mean covering, right? Like,
Mhm.
because,
What coverages are included for that cost?
and many people out there will really, especially when they're first getting a car, they think, oh, I don't need all this in my car
Yeah,
insurance. 'cause
give
I'm looking-
me what's
what's-
required.
What's
Yeah.
the basic coverage I could have? Now, the car they own might be a unbelievable brand new car or a used car, an old car, and does that play a role into what kind of insurances you have?
Yeah, so you want to think about the car itself, right? If you think about, do you own it? So do you own it, or is there a lien on it? Is there a leaseholder,
When you say lien, you mean that
like a
it's,
finance company?
finance.
right?
you,
So
like,
I'm buying it, but I'm making payments to Chase, so I'm
Yes.
making payments to Wells Fargo or something.
yes,
Or I'm leasing it direct with,
car company.
BMW leasing. If you don't own the car outright, these finance companies have an interest in how you insure it, because if it's damaged, they need to make sure it's going to get repaired.
Right.
So you have to carry a certain limit of liability, you have to carry physical damage coverage to repair that vehicle, because you have the loan
Is
on
this
it.
the base, like, cheap insurance that people get, or that's like without that stuff, right?
Yeah, so the state minimum for Connecticut is, you have to have 25,000 per person, 50,000 per accident for liability coverage. You have to carry state minimum liability to get your car registered. That's not adequate coverage if you then go hit somebody with your vehicle and you're being sued.
Right.
So a lot of times people will say, I just need insurance to get my car on the road. That's what you're taking, state minimum, bare bones, this is what you need to get that car legally to be on a street.
Right.
But if then you're at fault for an accident and being sued, you're gonna find that that coverage goes very quickly, and you're going to be potentially out of pocket a huge expense because you don't have the right coverage.
It's amazing to me that insurance companies allow that to have happen with the basic coverage, like you just said, because like you just said, this, you might get this basic, you get into a problem, God forbid, and now you have a major financial snafu.
Right, so what you wanna think about is if something were to happen, right, and we see news stories every day, there's hit and runs, there's, people are getting killed and the driver that's at fault left the scene. There are, accidents every day, that intersections, who's at fault for what? So if you're at fault and you're being sued, and that goes to court, and I was on a jury for a car accident, so I've had a little bit of experience of how it could play out in a courtroom, which has really changed my mindset as well as, wow, I've seen this in action now, and now I understand why you want to have the right limits. But if it gets to a courtroom like that, you're liable. And if your insurance doesn't have the coverage, they can garnish your wages. You might have to take out a personal loan to cover that. Like, you're liable. The court settled that you are now owing X number of dollars, right? So you want to make sure you have the insurance in place to cover what you could potentially lose. So in the process of buying a house, this house is now a large asset that you don't want to risk losing
So they
because
can
you
come
have
after your house.
yeah, they can come after your assets. So you don't want to have really low auto insurance and then drive away from your home closing and potentially risk all of your assets because you rear-ended somebody.
What if it's your child, God forbid, gets into an accident?
Yes.
Are you as a parent
Yes.
now liable for their financial challenges?
Yep, so the owner of the vehicle is going to be responsible for the actions of the vehicle.
So if the car is in your name as a parent, you're in trouble. But if it's in the child's name, how does that work if it's your child living in your
The
home?
liability is always gonna go to the ownership, and then if they're in your home, obviously they can sue you because you're now in the household and things like that. Whether or not you're found liable is a different story, so that's where seek attorney advice, but,
Right.
if you were seriously injured in an accident, good
God
example.
forbid. God
The
forbid.
case,
God forbid.
the case that I was on for the jury, it was a
Yeah.
23-year-old that had his father's vehicle.
Mhm.
And it happened in West Haven, where I grew up in West Haven, so as they're describing it, I can picture the street and everything and how it happened, and in my mind,
Probably Ella Brassa.
it was more towards like UNH, and it was at the end of the day, and traffic was backing up because everybody was let out and they were all like backed up behind a light. So if you can picture this, it's a double lane roadway and traffic's all backed up going this way, and the driver that was at fault, or deemed at fault, was making a left from a side street to turn this way, and a car that was in line went over the double yellow line to make a left-hand turn. So they smashed like that. And the guy that was suing, and this is where it was crazy, one person was suing, he had a soft tissue neck injury, no broken bones, not in a wheelchair, nobody died, not, in my head, it could have been so much worse. And that case settled for $300,000 in damages.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there like, what? So now if you look at your auto insurance policy, $25,000 per person, you're on the hook for $275 out of pocket.
Wow.
Where is it coming from? The next limit, 50, 100. 50,000 per person, you're out to 50 out of pocket, right? A lot of people say, I have great coverage, I have 100, 300. Okay, so your policy pays 100,000, you're still on the hook for the other 200,000. And this was not a bad multi-person accident. So when we look at that, we
Can
want
that be appealed or no?
I'm sure you can, but, and I was probably the only holdout on the case. I don't know who wanted me in the courtroom that day. I told them what I did for a living, but I didn't know. You can, in Connecticut, there was a law that you can go over the double yellow line to make a turn or a pass as long as there's no oncoming traffic. And I literally had the judge repeat that to me because that's the only way I determined, okay, out of the two that shouldn't have been there, in either case, he technically had the right of way. Because their case was saying there was absolutely no oncoming traffic. So out of the two people, you're making a left from a side street, you're in the oncoming traffic lane, he technically was able to be there.
But this person never knew that because they're coming from the
And how fast does an accident happen, right?
And we won't even get into tort, so. Because
No,
I'm a proponent of tort reform on that regard.
Right, and other states you have limited tort, verbal tort.
What's tort?
There, other states, like you have to pay more on your policy to sue for less damages, or you're only allowed to sue for like loss of a limb or like loss of a fetus or life or something like that. Like it has to be a significant damages for you to be able to sue for that.
Basically,
So other states are different options.
basically, it's, you can't sue for $300,000
Right.
for a soft tissue injury on your neck.
Yeah.
So you
You
have
know.
4 torts that wouldn't allow what you're saying.
Correct.
Is tort isn't per se.
It's a legal term.
It's in state by state kind of thing.
Yeah, the liability rules are based on each state.
Yeah.
I definitely know that Florida and Connecticut are different for sure
Mhm.
from things that happened. But okay, we're just went sidetracked here. So I might be asking a question that we were
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
How do you know what kind of auto policy to get?
Well, okay, so we wanna ask, what is the liability limit you need, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm working with people that are buying homes, I'm always starting at 250,000 per person and getting them to the limit on their auto policy, and then if they qualify, I'm even looking at an excess umbrella policy.
So a 250 policy is somewhere in the middle, I'm gonna say, right?
That's the highest of the
Oh, it's
typical
the
4
highest.
options. You have a
Okay.
state minimum, 2550.
Yeah.
And those two numbers, 25,000 is per person, 50,000 is for total accident. So say we leave here tonight and I rear end, you guys are in the same car,
Dude,
okay? I rear end you, you're driving, I rear end you. The 3 of you are in one car, okay? If you are all injured, that means no one body will get more than 25,000 for your injuries. But no one accident, and now I injured 3 people, will get more than 50,000 total for injuries.
Wow.
So if Dave takes his 25 and you take your 25, he gets nothing because the policy paid 50.
Not to mention, today you go to the doctor, just to go for whatever, it's thousands of dollars that they charge insurance, so it's this, I can't even imagine, the hospital ride, this and that, blah, 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 it's, you,
Sorry.
25,000, you blink an eye, it's gone.
Well, and that's how fast things add up, which is why, and think about it. If you're injured and now these are all coming at you out of your pocket, you're going to want to go after the person at fault for that, right?
Yeah.
So what you can't control is an accident happening and somebody coming at you. What you can control is how much coverage you're carrying in the event that that should happen. So you can choose your limits and you know, get the different.
You know, you guys are out there watching, there's a lot of conversation happening, I need to make sure that everybody has your phone number out there. Thane, is her number on the screen over there? For making sure you get a hold of Jennifer Crowley for insurance, homeowners, auto, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important that people are listening, you have questions, because a lot, again, coming at us when you're with these different situations. And again, if you have an insurance policy right now, when is the right time to kind of check it out? You're buying a home, you're selling a home, maybe
Yeah.
you're gonna get a new car.
New car,
Right.
because, and that's the thing too, you go from having an old car that maybe has been paid off for 10 years, and now you're getting rid of that vehicle and adding a brand new vehicle. So
So-
that can change.
So that was going back to the question on the age of the car. So the older a car is there more or less insurance on it because, let's say, for an older car, it's harder to find parts, it's more expensive? Or is it easier to find new parts on a newer car, or is it more expensive on a newer car because the car is more valuable versus an older car?
So it's the cost of parts, it's the availability of parts, but also the newer vehicles, look at a windshield today. all the sensors that are in a windshield today that were not in windshields 10 years ago.
Just found out that if your windshield has that thing, if what they call it, if you recalibrated, if it has the thing up in your window, what do you call it? In your screen when you're driving and you see the thing in front of you up on the screen, what do they call that?
I don't have that.
Okay.
No clue.
So they have, basically, you see your speedometer in front of you, like in the glass, whatever
Well,
it is.
yeah.
So all these,
Like, it's not just glass anymore,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's not just a quick glass repair, and it's recalibrating all the sensors, it's all the mechanics that go in just replacing that windshield. It's not a $200 repair any longer.
right, it's pretty interesting. All right. Well, I got a lot of questions. What are the kind of auto insurance policies? What are different parts to an auto policy?
So we have the liability, so that comes into play if you are found at fault and liable for somebody else's damage to their car, damage to their body, right, somebody gets injured. The other part is physical damage to your vehicle, so you have comprehensive and collision. So comprehensive, you wanna think about anything that could happen to your car without you driving it. Somebody can come by and key it and vandalize it, somebody can steal it,
This
a
happened.
tree could fall on
Right,
it.
Danny recently, for example, his car parked in a parking lot, someone backed into it, hit his light.
Yeah,
And the problem with that is, on these cars, if you don't repair a light, and you get your car washed, soap gets inside electrical water, it can really change the computer in your car.
mhm.
So I said, Danny, I said, you've gotta fix that light, because your thing's cracked, you have water or soap get in there, and now you're gonna have way deeper problems with your mechanicals of your car. And he was kind of annoyed by it. I said, this is your car, you gotta take care of it. And he went to the Cadillac dealership and it's cost him $1,000 or $800 for his light that he's gonna, repair it, someone else backed into him. And I wouldn't go through insurance for that because it would have been, again, for $1,000, it doesn't make sense to you. That's another thing, you have to kind of realize when
What's your
something happens,
deductible, right?
not just your deductible, but even if you were to start asking questions, if someone calls, now if they call you, it's different. This is the advantage of having you. If they call travelers directly and they ask a question, I'm not sure we talked about this. Right away when they ask a question about something with their car, would it be true that there's like a mark that goes on the name about that question they
So
asked about?
if you call in for a claim, right?
Well, they call you, it's different though, because you
Well,
call
I mean, you
from-
can have a conversation, but when you call a claims department to get a claim number assigned and a loss date and a report taken, that could show up on the loss history report. So just like homeowners insurance, when you get auto insurance quotes, we have to run loss history reports, we have to run motor vehicle reports, so we'll see, do you have speeding tickets, have you had claims, were they injury claims, like what kind of damage, have you had towing and labor losses, have you had windshields? So we'll look back on those reports. The reports will tell a story, right? So it'll say the date of the loss, what caused the loss, what was paid out, and at what part of the policy paid out. So I'll be able to see there was property damage. That means your vehicle that you insured had damage and you fixed it. If it shows that there's liability, that means you were at fault for injuring somebody else, right? So then it's kind of like somebody sued for injuries. That's a more serious offense than, somebody hitting your light while you weren't even occupying the car.
Right.
So it all gets weighted differently, but then also they look at the frequency of claims. So you could go 10 years and not have a claim, and then all of a sudden have a really bad run of luck and have a claim. And the underwriters are looking at that like, wow, this is a pattern now, like I don't wanna be insuring the vehicle the next time, you
Right,
know?
or this individual.
So I think, but, no, your question was that geared towards, I'm not putting in a claim, I just want to get an idea.
Right, like I wanna call it.
So
Well,
if
yeah.
I claim this, what's going to happen?
Right,
And that we can't tell you. If you called me and said, if I put this claim in, what's that gonna do to my rates? I have no idea. Because your rates aren't even evaluated until, the actuaries at the insurance company are running the renewals 60 days before they're going to offer you the renewal, and who knows what other things they're looking at. So I won't even be able to honestly say.
But I think Dave wants to know also is, if you call the insurance company and you say, hey, hypothetical question.
right,
Okay.
I've done that before.
If somebody was to
Yeah.
take off my front fender,
Right.
okay,
You
what am
wanna-
I looking at?
Yeah, so you wanna get an estimate.
Do they
for the
mark the
repairs.
file and go, possible?
If a claim is initiated.
Well, we're not
they
talking about a
have-
claim,
I know.
we're talking about a
I know, but it
hypothetical
depends
question.
on-
It depends,
depends.
I think it depends on the phone,
It
and like,
depends
if
on-
you go to your policy, now they're looking at things, or they're clicking through, They must, I bet you it has to be that there's,
Yeah, my calls are recorded, our conversations have to get documented, because you need proof of loss, you need time. Insurance is very time and date specific, especially, when you change policies, it is all 12:01 a.m. You cannot be insured by two companies on the same day. So if I'm going from, company A to company B, and I get into an accident, what's the date and time of the loss, and which company was insuring you at that time? So there has to be a very clear distinction. So when there's a loss, and here's the other thing, there's a lot of insurance fraud, right? So I've seen posts on Facebook saying, oh, you just crashed your car, call your insurance company and add collision, and then wait 30 days and put the claim in. That's fraud. The loss happened when you didn't have coverage. You can't call and add coverage and then put a claim in. And that's why when we are doing new insurance quotes, one of the questions is there any unrepaired damage? Some companies want photos of the vehicle. Like there's reasons why they ask for coverage, so that the insurance, they're trying to prevent the fraudulent
But
claims.
couldn't you, and I'm not suggesting anybody does this, but you could take a picture of anybody's vehicle and send it in and go,
You could,
here's my.
but when I've had to submit photos, they want the license plate to match the registration as well.
That's fine.
So they want a picture of your vehicle
Right, but
with the
picture-
license plate, matching the registration and the same license plate. So if you're gonna go through all of that to
Photoshop.
fraudulently,
Photoshop.
I don't want you as a client.
Canva, no.
are there any questions out of the bench for anybody over there? Okay. Let's see.
I'm a huge proponent of being as honest as possible
Right.
to
Sure.
avoid the insurance company having a way to not pay for you later, right?
Right.
No
So when
question.
you try and do things to get the rates cheaper because you think it benefits you now, it is going to make it so much worse for you in the event you have a claim and you need them later.
I'm definitely a person who wants protection. I'm one of those I'm more conservative when it comes to insurance stuff,
Mhm.
which is why I know that my insurances are higher. Because you have family and kids, God forbid,
Yeah.
you're home. I think when you're older, you become wiser very quickly. If you have kids and a family, you need to protect your family. God forbid you get sued. As an adult, you've got a child.
Yeah.
There's so much liability there that could be at
Like if
stake.
you have a newly licensed teen driver that is
Yeah.
just unsure behind the wheel and they cause damage, they're still part of your policy, it's your vehicle, like you're responsible for that. And I wasn't allowed to get my license because it was going to make my mom's insurance rates go up. And I understand that now, I did not like that when I was 16.
Right.
But, I didn't get car insurance until I got my own vehicle and was on my own.
Does your credit affect what kind of policy you may have or how
Yeah,
expensive?
so when we do the insurance quotes, I don't necessarily need like a social security number. So
Okay.
we need your name, your date of birth, we need all drivers in the household.
Yeah.
When you're moving, we'll need your address from the last 2 or 3 years.
But if I said to you, I have a credit score of, let's say,
I don't run credit,
Oh,
but
okay.
that's what I'm trying to say. So I don't run a credit report and I don't ask for your social, but sometimes your credit score has an impact on the insurance score that's coming back for the things that they
so-
are running.
So when you look at the insurance score, it might be affected because
It might
of
have an impact, correct.
Okay.
So when we're dealing with spouses,
Yeah.
sometimes one might have a more favorable score, it will affect the
Almost
rate.
always.
Yeah,
That's right.
Does the insurance get lower as you get older or no?
not
So
necessarily.
age is not
That's a
a.
good question.
Some
I
companies
would
will
imagine
surcharge
as you
for
get
older
older, it
drivers.
goes down a little bit, and then when you start hitting like
So,
age.
yeah,
it
so
just
the
starts to go.
underage, when you're under, say, 21, 25, or when you've been licensed for less than 3 years, like you're considered an inexperienced driver, so your rates are going to be higher. But then on the flip side of that, as you start aging, because things naturally happen, your vision gets worse, your reaction time gets worse, right? Sometimes there's a surcharge for older drivers as well, so you can get it on either end.
When you get married.
Yes, benefit to all you single guys out there.
So I'm gonna say something that I was shocked upon. When I got married, my wife and I had to go and get insurance for both of us back in 2001. And I remember calling the insurance agent and them telling me, because I paid I think I paid maybe $200 a month, and she was paying let's say $150 a month. And me, oh my God, it's gonna cost $300. They're like, no, you get now a discount for being married because you're now responsible because you're married. I was like, oh wow.
Being
But you know why
married.
that is? Because she made you get rid of the sports car.
Being married versus being single is a rating factor too, but then, like in your example, you each have a single car policy that now became one, and you're
Yes.
getting a multi-vehicle discount now that you don't get on your single cars. So when you're married, you can, add those two policies together. When you're dating, it's different. It still goes by the insurable interest of the vehicle's property, right? So the person insuring that property needs to have an insurable interest in it. I need to own that. I need to be out something if there's damages to this property because it's mine. So I can't say, hey Dave, can you insure my vehicle for me?
Right.
Because you'll get better rates. Like it doesn't work like that. I have to pay the rates that I'm my risk for my vehicle, right? So it might be more beneficial when you have a more responsible
Someone's got a question or a
driver that you
comment
can.
up there, sorry.
That's okay.
It was Dennis. He said, "It's me, Dennis. You guys rock."
Dennis in Vegas, just saw, as a matter of fact, our client of ours, we were in Vegas this past week, as I mentioned to you. And good friend, good client. Hey, what's up, Dennis? Thank you very much for being a part of the show.
Aw.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Thanks for
but
watching.
awesome stuff. So
So
Dave,
combining policies can add a discount too. And I'll look at that as well, especially when you have people that have just got married or they haven't really done their auto yet and now they're buying that new home. We'll look at, okay, you're paying X over here, you're paying Y over here, and then we have the new home.
So let me ask you another question together. If you have, let's say, a gentleman and a woman, or two people, they're coming to live together. They're not married yet, but they're engaged. Does that make a difference? Engaged versus not married
Yeah.
versus married.
And also, like when my husband and I were living together for a few months before we actually got married, but when we bought a vehicle, we bought it in both names. So we were able, you know what I'm saying, because the ownership was in both of our names.
Does that drop the insurance less?
Not necessarily. So the insurance score and your driving records and everything else goes into that rating. So it's not just because there's two people. It's now they're looking at the risk differently. They're not just rating one, they're rating the package.
So you're saying your husband had a much worse record than you did? No, I'm kidding.
No, he was the better one.
That's awesome. And he was like,
I married up.
you married up. It's funny because always one spouse has better credit, better driving coverage.
They said, what was it? It was significant other, sign if I can't, right? Because one usually makes more but has a lower credit, and
Yeah.
one has a higher credit, and you need each other. And
Yes.
That's what significant other means. I read that somewhere.
Interesting. All right. Does your work life determine what type of insurance
yeah.
you should have?
So how you use your vehicle. So for instance, you guys are driving all over the state. We're just talking about all the different towns that you show houses in, right? So
Yes.
I work from home
Yes.
primarily, so I don't leave my house much, right? So I'm kind of on like a pleasure usage for my vehicle. Where if before, you go from your house to one location, you park there all day and then you drive back home, that's considered a commute. And then they'll ask, how many days are you commuting? How many
Right.
miles one way?
Right.
And it's rated on that. So do you have a short commute? Do you have an hour-long commute? How many miles a year are you averaging? And then you get into what I would classify you guys as business use. I'm using the vehicle, but at multiple locations, and I'm averaging this many miles a year. So you're not in a set pattern, you're on the road all different times of, all different days. It's not really set schedule for you guys. That would be considered business use. And then, you have the
So our rates would be higher than.
business use is
Based on the
typically
amount of
higher
use.
than pleasure, right? And then depending on the annual miles. And here's I was comparing a quote this morning. Somebody got a quote with another company, and I'm looking at how I was quoting it versus how the other company quoted it. And I said, well, I have you down as like 12,000 miles a year. They have you down as 4,000. Which one is it? Because I want it to be correct. And they're like, well, and then I did the math. I'm like, if you commute 20 miles one way times, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, we're at 10,400 miles. So you're way over, they're quoting you too low, which is making their rate too low, but it's an incorrect rate.
So it felt better, but it wasn't really better.
I'm honest.
I'm just
It
right.
helps when you understand why the rates are different.
Right.
And it's not just like
the
you're
more-
higher, it's like, okay, that's more accurate.
Right.
I'm more comfortable going with the accurate rate versus
Well,
being
Now I know why
lowballed.
they asked me how many miles
Yeah.
I put on in a year.
And the thing is, every time you get your car serviced, your mileage goes in there. There are reports where they can do a mileage check. So
Yeah,
if you're lying about it,
Carfax.
sometimes the reports
Carfax.
will pull in and,
Yeah.
and auto-correct it for you too. So you just want to be as accurate as possible.
Oh, I think I'm too accurate, actually. I think
I was honest with when he asked me.
I think that when I look at my insurance rates that I
It was.
pay, and especially the young driver, the 21-year-old, it's like I'm at $1,000 a month between home and auto. I mean, it's like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's bananas. But what am I gonna do? I gotta do what I gotta do. You gotta pay the insurance, you gotta be covered, you gotta be safe, you gotta make sure you
Right.
have all the details of what you
Yeah.
need.
And it's a period of time, right? My oldest is 8. I'm
Right.
not there yet.
Yeah.
By the time I'm there, your kids are going to be running out of the house. Or at least
Yes.
your oldest.
And hopefully
So,
owning their own
You know,
car,
it's
owning
a
their own.
period of time.
It's funny, I talked to, by the way, let me ask you a question, and it may not be something my son wants to hear or not, but when can he get his own insurance policy in his own name and not be under the parents' policy? Is that something that can happen
When
sooner,
you-
or is that when they live in that? How does it work?
You want to basically, even now, if he has his own policy but his primary residence is still your house, all the companies right now are really asking for all household members. So they really want to rate the risk as to who's in the house and who has access to the vehicles. And then every company treats it differently. So some of them are saying we need to list all household members that are driving age, and then I have to say licensed, permitted, not licensed, insured elsewhere. Some only want them if they have a license, they don't take them as a permitted driver. And some of them, they exclude them from the rating if we can prove that they are insured somewhere else. But we have to account for everybody in that household. So especially when you have like the boyfriend-girlfriend situation, and you know, I'm doing the quote for you, but your boyfriend lives there, I need to account for him being in the household, because there's going to be the chance.
Is it everybody in the household who drives, or?
Everybody in the household, and then we have to specify.
So like an 8-year-old
No,
can
driving
take the car
age,
for a drive?
driving
Okay,
age,
that's what I
driving
meant.
age.
No,
Yeah,
because
good question, but driving age.
12-year-old will take the car for a drive.
Driving age,
You know,
yeah.
okay,
And that's
driving
what I said, some companies, like I've had
Well, you did
teen,
it, didn't you?
I've had teen permitted drivers where
Right.
one company says, we don't add them until they're licensed. Okay, that's the way that company does it. This other company wants them added, and then we have to specify it.
When you're shopping these things around, it's gotta be such a jumble of information, and as you go from insurance company to insurance company to insurance company, and each one has their own restrictions or
Yeah.
allowable options. Because you've been in this business 10 years now, and when you start to speak,
18 years in the business.
18 years in the business, 18,
It's 10 years.
10 anywhere, or 10, okay, no kidding. So when you're in this business so long,
I'm only 28 years old then.
I was gonna say, because like, honestly, like 18 years, I mean, I know what it's like, 18 years when I started, right, like where things were.
Yeah.
So just, the point is that you get so much experience, I say experience matters all the time. Experience matters, the more experience you're working with somebody, the more work they've done in that industry, right? Some people, for example, might be a newer insurance person, and let's just say in the last couple of years, but they've got a lot of work under the belt and they've got more experience versus someone who's just started off. You know, and in your situation, 18 years in the business, when someone starts talking to you already, you're already thinking about what insurance carrier for them before you
Right,
call them,
right.
because
Right.
you kind of know what
Who's
you've
gonna
got.
be good for that fit?
Right.
Who's gonna take the accidents and claims that you might have? Who wants, you know, who has extra teen driver? There are some companies out there that offer their own online teen driving course that gives a better discount than if they went to driver's ed. So when I
Okay.
have a family with teen drivers, I'm automatically thinking, okay, do they have good grades? Do they have, you know, are they away at school without a vehicle? Like, what kind of discounts can we trigger to kind of offset?
Let me ask you a question. Does that include college as far
Yes.
as grade scale? Really?
Yes,
So if your kid graduates like magna cum laude, or if they've
they
got
have to
their-
be an active full-time student, so they can't be a graduate, but
right?
if they're in school full-time and you can get a copy of their transcripts, usually it's a 3.0 or higher for grades.
Really?
Full-time student, not a part-time student.
I have to look into that.
Full-time student, and then the other thing is away at school. If they are away at school, over 100 miles is usually the trigger, without a vehicle. So sometimes, like your son was going to school in Florida
With a vehicle.
with a vehicle, so it wouldn't qualify. But if you flew him to Florida and flew him home and his car was parked in Connecticut the entire time, you would
Right.
get an away at school discount because he's not with the car.
Right, right. Because at that point, technically speaking, who's driving the car could be my wife and I, but
or it could just be parked.
But you
Yeah.
can also put it in storage though, also, right?
Yeah,
You can put that vehicle in storage.
yeah.
You leave it in your driveway, you can still mark it as being in storage, that nobody's using it.
Interesting. That's not the case over here, but it's good
Right.
to know. It's
But
good to know.
that's the trigger, so any teen drivers, and you can use that, especially if you're going to have your kids share in the cost, right? So some of these teenagers that are working and the rates are going up and you're having them contribute to the cost, if you show them this is the rate with great grades and this is the rate without, they might have an incentive to get those good grades.
So I'm going to finish with this last question, which you kind of started with. Can a son or daughter in their 20s have their own insurance policy? And you're saying not if they live in your home.
They
I'm saying they can,
Well, they
but
can,
they're
but it's
still
still tied
going
up
to
to
be, they're still
So-
going to be considered part of your household.
Does that make it better or worse for them?
It
Or
depends, it depends, it
As
depends
if
on
mom
who
and dad
else
are
is
good
being,
drivers versus
right,
bad drivers.
right, I've seen it go both ways, where
Got
the
it.
parents are the ones that have
But
the.
do they still have the ability to go after the parents' assets if
But,
it's
so that's a legal
someone's-
question, because I feel like anybody can sue you, whether or not there's liability
Right.
and
The
where
suing,
it falls.
the suing thing is such a crazy thing that we have to do. Back in
Yeah.
the day, it was never like this.
It's very
So you're right,
litigious.
you can get sued for anything. And
And here's the other thing, look at, okay, if you are driving a brand new, very expensive vehicle,
Mercedes.
okay, and then I have my Kia Sedona, right?
Yeah.
And we hit somebody, your image is that you have deep pockets
It's true.
versus my image of a broke soccer mom. But you know what I'm saying? Like, the image you put out there, the clothes you wear, you're getting out of your vehicle at an accident scene. What's on your watch? You know, what kind of watch you got? What kind of clothes you're wearing? What kind of car you're
What you're
driving?
saying is stripped
So-
down when you get into
No,
an
no, no,
accident.
I'm just saying, be aware.
Naked and driving.
When you have nice things, you may be putting out an image there that there are deep pockets, even if there are
That's
not.
true.
So you're going to be more likely for people to sue versus someone that they look at with a beat up car that's already, zip tied together. They're gonna be like, oh, I can't get blood from a stone over there, but look at this guy, he just rear-ended me, I'm gonna hit the jackpot. It's a mentality thing, and you can be sued. Now, you have to make sure, one, that you're not found at fault, but if you are, you need to have that coverage in place, because you could be, it's the story of back in the day when you had the one doctor in town. If the one doctor hit you versus, the guy working on the farm,
Right.
who do you think you're gonna get more from? So you wanna think about the house, the driveway you're pulling into, the cars that you're driving, the images that you have. If I were to hit somebody, I really need to protect myself.
That being said, get in touch with Jennifer Crowley, Anywhere Insurance, many years of experience, super knowledgeable. It's important for you to update your insurance. If you're looking to buy a home, relocating, you're going from a rent to owning a home, you own something, this is the time to protect yourself.
Yeah, and when you get your renewal, feel free to shop around, see what else is out there. Are you good where you are, or should you make a move? And it's always a good time to check.
All right, we're at the next part of our show. Jennifer, you were awesome today, by the way. Thank you so much. We're going to give out a free tumbler. Make sure you get in touch with Jennifer Crowley. This, by the way, flies by every time you're here. It's
I know, I feel
awesome.
like I could talk for another hour.
But it's good because what happens is
Everything
people are really
still.
learning and they're educating themselves. We learn every time we're sitting down with you so much, which is why we're having you back in September,
Yep.
because there'll always be more things to talk about. And if you guys have questions about, hey, I want to find out from you guys, can you ask Jennifer? Let us know. We'll get those questions, of course, ready for you as well. But definitely reach out to Jennifer. Call her. What's your number for them to reach you out at?
860-760-0026.
Jennifer Crowley, Anywhere Insurance. All right, Mr. Thane, help me out with getting that spinner wheel up, and let's see who's going to be the winner of the new tumbler coming out. Eric, I took a look at the new tumblers. They're pretty cool looking. They're a little different than I like these sleep ones, but they're more of a slender.
We got Anissa Juanita off Instagram.
Anissa Juanita, congratulations on your tumbler. Please reach out to us. Get us your information so we can send this beautiful tumbler out to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for being part of the show. Jennifer Crowley, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us. I get myself over here. It's awesome. You're knowledgeable. You're wonderful to be with, and we appreciate you very much. And thank you to Jennifer's family for allowing her to be here tonight as well. We want to wish you guys a wonderful evening, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.